In this video I'm going to show you how I replaced the screen for a Moto G Stylus 2023 model. First you remove the SIM card tray and then get a heat gun to heat up the back of the phone. A lot of this phone is held together with a glue. It's kind of like rubber cement. If you heat it up then you can pry it apart. That's exactly what we're doing with the back here. The back cover is really flexible, so you don't really have to worry about damaging anything at this point. Then spend a little time cleaning it up. When you glue it back together, you're going to need all of the glue and tape off of it. Next, there are some small screws. It's a small Torx bit. I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but there are about 7 screws in that top plate cover. I'll go ahead and apologize for the quality. I filmed this from fairly far away and had to zoom in, so a little bit grainy. Once you've removed all the screws you can see, you then pry off the lens cover from the camera. This is held on by a couple of strips of tape. And once you have that off, there are 3 more screws that are hidden under that lens cover. So you take those off with the same Torx bit. And then you can remove the plastic cover from the top, and it's a similar procedure down at the bottom. Remove all of the Torx screws. There's a tricky one in the corner that's hidden under a white sticker. It took me a little bit to find that one. And once you have all those screws out, just remove that plastic cover from the bottom. Once you peel back the black insulator, you'll see 2 connectors there that we care about. The first one I pry off is the battery connector, and then the second one is the largest connector for the screen. The battery has that one connector and the screen has 2 different connectors. There's one at the top that we just disconnected, and there's another one at the bottom that I'll show you later. Those are the only 3 connectors in this whole process. The step I'm showing here is the one that you really need to be careful about. I tried to replace a screen a few months ago, and I was a little bit too aggressive with the battery, and the battery actually started smoking, almost caught on fire. So be very gentle here. Just work some alcohol under the battery, work it back and forth, be very patient. What you're trying to do here is the battery is held into the phone by a couple of strips of tape. You're trying to get some alcohol in there to just dissolve the adhesive of that tape. So be very careful. Take 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Again, just let the alcohol do its work. I occasionally use some heat. And after a while, you'll just start to feel the battery wiggle back and forth as that adhesive dissolves away. Whatever you do, just don't deform that battery because it could run away from you. Getting that battery out was the hardest step for me, so if you did that, you're home free. Next, you want to peel that ribbon cable back, and we're going to take the screen out of the front. The screen's held in with some T7000 glue. Again, it's kind of like rubber cement. So if you heat it up, if you get a blade in there, the screen actually comes out pretty easily. It's really all about heat and patience. You can see there I'm disconnecting the second connector for the screen. There's a long ribbon cable that attaches at the top, and then there's a short ribbon cable that loops back around and attaches at the bottom. Once you have the old screen out, you want to clean out all the glue and any broken glass that's left in there. You want this really clean so your new screen will sit into it nicely. Speaking of new screen, we feed that in through the slots. And this is probably where it's easiest to see the 2 connectors for the screen. There's a ribbon cable that goes up to the top, and then there's a smaller cable that loops around and plugs right in. I think I'll give a clearer shot of that now. That connector was a little bit difficult, but if you keep wiggling it around, it eventually finds the seat. And again, that longer ribbon cable plugs up at the top. Like I said, there's only 3 connectors. There's 2 for the screen, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then the third one for the battery. What I'm going to do here is plug everything in and just make sure it works. I had to charge mine up to about 9% before it actually turned on. You want to make sure your screen works before you glue it all back together, because if something's not connected right, or if you got a faulty screen, you want to know right away. Once you've seen that it can power up, just take the battery back out, take the screen back out, again, same 3 connectors, and then it's time to get out the glue. This glue is B7000. It feels and smells like some type of rubber cement. You want to run a bead around the edge of the new screen so it'll hold itself into the frame. And then you're assembling it just like you did before. You feed the ribbon cables in through the frame of the phone. Try to seat the screen in there as best you can. And then connect those 2 ribbon cables. The short one that loops back around at the bottom, and the longer ribbon cable that goes up to the top. Then make sure that ribbon cable's sitting nice and flat, because that's where the battery goes. And just like you had to dissolve adhesive from the battery to get it out, we're going to put a little bit more of that B7000 glue in there, glue in the battery pack, connect its connector, and then everything is just reversing what you did before. Snapping in the bottom plastic connector. This one was actually a little bit hard to snap in, took me a while, and then replace the screws. And same with the top cover. Just put it back in place, get all the screws in there. And then you're going to snap the lens cover back in place. This took me a little while too. You have to look at it. There's some small snapping connectors and you have to line them all up just right, and then give it a good push and it'll snap in place. And then replacing the screws. Then we're gluing the back cover back on, so just run a bead of glue around the outside. I also put a bead of glue around the lens cover, not sure if that's needed or not. And then you just press down the cover and clamp the whole thing together while the glue dries. You really just want to make sure the screen is seated nicely into the frame. So what I did, I used a bunch of clothespins around the edge just to hold it consistently around the edge and let it cure overnight. And that's about it. The next day, just come back. You can clean up any excess glue with alcohol. You don't really have to worry if any of your glue squeezes out or gets on the screen. It's easy to clean up. But the whole idea here is, save a phone for 30 bucks and seems to work pretty well. You can see here the touch screen's working just fine. So this phone has some new life. Hope that helps someone.